Finovate showcases cutting-edge banking and financial technology through a global conference series featuring short-form demos and thought leadership. Now, the conversation continues on the Finovate podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Finovate podcast. We are continuing our conversations with the FinovateSpring Best of Show winners from this past event in May in San Francisco. And joining me today, we have Lukas Haffer, CEO of Cascading AI. Lukas, thank you so much for joining me today.
Great to be on.
So for anybody looking to get more information on the event, as you've heard me say over the last couple of weeks, you can find all of the demo videos from FinovateSpring at finovate.com/videos, including our Best of Show winners who are up there as well. But Lukas, for people who haven't actually seen your demo yet, can you start by just giving us a little bit of background on yourself and Cascading AI?
Yeah, happy to do that. And thanks for having me on the podcast. In a nutshell, Cascading AI provides an end-to-end loan origination system for community banks to process small business loan applications and commercial loan applications with 90% less manual effort. And my background is deep in the banking sector. I spent my whole career building, maintaining, developing core banking systems. That's not a career I can recommend to anyone. Core banking systems are a pain, but it did give me a pretty solid understanding of how the underlying IT infrastructure of a bank really works. And you pair that with 2 years of machine learning and AI research at Stanford. And you get a pretty unique combination of skills to go back into the banking sector and automate a lot of the manual, repetitive tasks that people used to do manually on top of our software that now with the advent of large language models, you really can automate. And that's what we do at Cascading AI. Founded the company coming out of Stanford last year. We went through Y Combinator, the famous startup accelerator that brought us companies like OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT, Airbnb, and many, many others, and raised around $4 million to build this company and shake up the small business lending landscape.
Yeah, no, really cool pedigree, and obviously your experience kind of makes you uniquely suited for the role that you have now with Cascading AI. I want to start by talking about, people have been looking at bringing artificial intelligence into the loan origination process for a little while now. And there have been people who've done some impressive things there, but there hasn't been that kind of single solution that's really cracked the code, at least in my eyes, there hasn't. Your presentation really resonated with a lot of our attendees. Clearly, they voted for you. What makes Cascading AI different from the others who have tried to do similar things before you?
I think in the last 10 years, people have used machine learning in order to develop models to judge whether a loan applicant should get a loan, to make loan default prediction. And while some people have seen success with it, I think they missed the mark. They thought that the biggest challenge was deciding whether to say yes or no. But the biggest challenge in lending is actually to just get the information that you need in order to say yes or no. And so loan officers today spend 80% of their day just writing simple reminder emails. Hey, we still need your 2021 tax return. Can you send that over so we can take a look? And we realized that now with the advent of large language models, the model technology that underpins ChatGPT, you have the ability to automate that document collection process. You have the ability to guide loan applicants through the process of submitting the information you need to make a decision, rather than just relying on humans to do that portion and then trying to make slightly better underwriting decisions, which were never the problem to begin with. When you have all the information together, you can usually tell within just a couple of minutes whether this is going to be a good deal or a bad deal. And so we recognized this through hundreds and hundreds of interviews with loan officers, heads of underwriting, heads of small business lending. And we built a solution towards what is the real problem, which is just an enormous effort in manual document collection and applicants that churn at various points of the process because they get confused and they need to get recaptured.
Yeah, no, certainly you've hit on a major pain point. And I remember my own experience when I was getting my first mortgage. We were working with the agency that needed all the documentation. And, we had found the house that we liked. We were ready to go on that. But we said, okay, how quickly can we get this documentation and everything done? We were told a month. And I said, well, what if we actually are really good at getting you all the materials that you need? What if we can, we're really responsive, we're pretty organized people. Can we bring that time down? And the answer we got was, oh, absolutely you can. If you have everything we need, we can actually get this done inside a week. And what you're talking about is even taking it a step further. So before we get too far, though, how exactly does it work at a really high level? I mean, you certainly don't need to recap the entire demo, but can you give us a quick overview of how it all works?
Yeah, at a very high level, a community bank that might currently not even offer an online application now with Cascading AI gets a super smooth, beautiful online application form that they can put on their website. An applicant goes in, starts filling out some information. Most people go through that in about 5 minutes. Some people struggle at some point. For example, when we ask them for an EIN number, and sometimes people churn on such fields. In a previous world, no one had the time to follow up with someone who churns after submitting 3 questions on an application form and then never submitting the actual form. But we follow up with them immediately using our AI loan assistant, Sarah. Sarah has infinite time and follows up with everyone and gets a lot of applicants to come back into the application process. So she might write a message like, hey, Greg, saw you started an online application for a $250,000 loan application for some working capital. Would love to learn a little bit more about your company and what you're seeking funding for. Also, here's a link to jump back into the application and pick up where you left off. Or if someone churns on a specific field, like when we ask them for their EIN number, Sarah might write a more specific message like, hey, Greg, saw you were struggling with filling out the section about your EIN and ownership information. You can usually find your EIN on a letter that the IRS sent you when you incorporated your business. Let me know if there's anything else I can help you with. Otherwise, here's a link to jump back into the application form and pick up where you left off. And in the beginning, when we set this live, we thought that people would take the information that Sarah gives them and just click the link, go back into the application and finish the process. But what really happens, big surprise, people just love responding to Sarah. So they hit the reply button on that email. And the first email that Sarah ever wrote out was regarding an EIN number. The person on the other side responded within 3 minutes saying, hey, Sarah, thank you so much for following up. I indeed have no idea what an EIN number even is. Is it okay if I send you my business's TIN? And now, Greg, you and I know TIN, EIN, that's the same 9-digit number they are referring to. So Sarah immediately responded, sure, submitting a TIN is fine. Just make sure it's the number that you file your business's taxes under. And boom, we've got that person back into the flow. They go through the rest of the application. They land in our digital applicant portal where they can upload all the documentation that we need in order to make an underwriting decision, like their bank statements, or link their bank account via Plaid, upload financial records, their accounting data, or allow us to pull it from their QuickBooks accounting system. And we provide that portal for the bank, and it works out of the box, beautiful, can be branded with the bank's logo and colors everywhere. And Sarah guides the applicant through providing all the information we need. And then in the end, a loan officer can look at a completed loan file. We do it all for that one magical moment where on a Monday morning, a loan officer logs in, and instead of seeing, oh, another applicant that churned after 3 questions, they see a completed loan file with all the information they need to make an underwriting decision, including us already having pulled a credit report, a KYB report, having validated that the business is in the assessment area that the bank wants to underwrite loans in. And it makes some of these processes go from an average of 6 months, 12 months, 3 months for an SBA 7A loan, for example, all the way down to just a couple of days.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really is striking about it as well is how human it is, right? And that's an odd thing to say about an AI play like that, but I think it does a really good job of meeting people where they are, right? I think the example that you just
100%.
mentioned is a perfect example of, this is something I struggle. I don't know what my EIN is, and actually, no, you do. You totally know it. You just call it something else.
Right.
And I think this is one of those places where this is artificial intelligence used in a way that is really going to help a lot of individuals out. I do have to ask, how did you decide that small business lending was the area that you really wanted to focus on?
That's just a huge pain point in small business lending. As a small business owner looking for funding right now, you essentially have 2 bad options. You either go with a community bank that might give you the funding you need at a decent interest rate, but it's just going to take forever, Like most banks that we see in the beginning don't even offer the option for you to apply online. You'll find an email address or phone number or the location of the nearest branch. And now we know, after having processed thousands of applications, that most small business owners look for funding outside of banking hours. So our peak application volume every week is on Friday night at 10:30 p.m., which kind of makes sense if you think about it. It's a small business owner that just brought their kids to bed, closed the shop up for the week, and now is getting ready to do the admin work of applying for that funding they need. But at that time, no one at the bank is going to respond. And no one's going to respond on Saturday either. No one's going to respond on Sunday. So now it's Monday at noon, and that applicant has essentially been ghosted. And at this point, they probably turn to the second option, which is even worse, which are the predatory online lenders. I think some people call them fintechs, but I think we should call them what they really are, which is digital loan sharks. They will give you funding relatively quickly, call it a merchant cash advance maybe. But then you have a rude awakening when you realize that you're paying 25, 35, 45% interest rates. I've seen as high as 60% APR. I've heard people tell me, I don't get out of bed for anything below 50% APR. And I find it horrible, because a lot of these businesses would qualify for much cheaper funding, much more affordable funding. It's just very hard to get through a lengthy loan application process if there's no option to do it easily digitally.
Yeah, and I think this is a really crucial line, right? I think there was a couple of years ago, we would have people say, I've got an online lending portfolio. You would go online, click through some things, and invariably the process would end with, okay, now print all this out and bring it into a branch. And you're like, well, that's not really online. I mean, you can get started online. You can get a checklist of documents that you need to have, but it's a long way from being able to actually complete a loan origination online. And I think to your point as well, those barriers can really hurt the companies that are affected by them. The fact that somebody might not be able to get the speed of a response that they need can lead them towards something which is really going to do long-term damage to both themselves and their company. And so when you look at it from that context, this is clearly an area that's ripe for disruption, where there's a lot of benefit to be gained on both sides. You kind of touched on this already, but you're targeting sort of smaller community banks. Why is that the right group for you to be working with?
One, I really like working with community banks because I like their mission of serving the community. Two, in order to serve small businesses, you need a source of funding that is affordable, and small businesses are looking often for real estate, and being anchored in the community allows the bank to actually have better underwriting for those properties, and small business owners that are looking for working capital, etc. They are trying to grow in the community, and the community banks want to serve them with that and can offer decent rates even in a high interest rate environment, because they have deposits, whereas the online lenders, they don't. They are probably lending out of a warehouse line they got from some larger bank or private credit fund that already has a higher interest rate on it. So they are fundamentally not well positioned in order to offer attractive lending options, while the community banks really are. And you find a lot of community banks that are very tech forward and very innovative and very interested in getting more deposits and getting more small business owners into their client base.
Yeah, I think one of the other things that people like about community banks as well is the idea, if I bank with a community bank, I want my dollars to stay in my community, right? I like the idea of the money that I put into a savings account being used to help small businesses that I can then benefit from. It's a local restaurant, it's a local shop in many cases. And these are the types of things that strengthen communities at this super micro level. And so that's another really cool piece about that side of it as well. So looking at FinovateSpring again, you clearly resonated with the audience. You got a lot of votes. What type of response would you say you got? Did you find that most of the people that you spoke to were able to kind of understand how it would work and kind of imagine themselves using it?
100%. Literally 1 week after we were on stage at FinovateSpring, we were sitting in the boardroom of a bank who was ready to do a pilot immediately to go live on Casca. And I think that's the magical effect of Finovate, where instead of just being at a conference where maybe you have a booth and you have some superficial conversations, you get to actually demo your product and show people what it could do for their business. And so the bank representatives in the audience got to see how it could look like for them. And for some of them, I ended up spinning up an instance while they were literally at our booth to show them how a Casca online loan application would look like with their logo and their color scheme and their origination criteria already in there. And some of them are moving incredibly fast, which is almost unheard of in the industry. But because we are now seeing the enormous effect it has on their conversion rates, we are seeing that people go from a conversion rate that is 5 to 8% of people that start an application actually finishing it and filling out their entire application, go up to all the way to 67% on average right now with Casca. So that's more than a 10x increase in conversion rate. And it's the promise of doing a lot more business with a lot less manual effort that brings people to move incredibly fast. And I haven't seen that at any other conference before.
I feel like this is the part where I should put the small print up there on the screen, something to the effect of these results not typical, not guaranteed. Somebody talking really quickly and giving some type of disclaimer. But I'm really glad that was your experience. And certainly that's what we hope that the conference will be. And technology like yours certainly does demo very well. It becomes very easy for people watching to quickly kind of understand and see exactly how it benefits them. We are approaching the end of our time. I have one last question for you. Looking into the future, let's imagine that you're kind of you're able to realize all of your ambitions. What does the lending ecosystem look like? Outside of these kind of individual financial institutions, individual companies, but what does the broader lending ecosystem end up looking like if you're able to do everything you hope you can do?
Our mission at Casca is to make banking magical with AI. And so whenever someone asks me a question like this, I go back to what would a magical lending experience for a small business owner look like? And I think it means finding the most affordable source of funding with very little effort and making it easy if one bank might not be able to do my deal to get referred out to another bank without having to re-enter all the same information. And I think with Casca, we have a prime opportunity to make that possible, where essentially I see a small business owner starting a loan application with a community bank because he knows that's the easiest way to get the most affordable funding from a trusted partner. And the community banks have leapfrogged the fintechs in terms of digital technology and are now able to close on a deal within a day or two to get the small business owner the funding they need. And if they decide that this is a deal that they wouldn't typically do, like let's take a bank that doesn't do any commercial real estate, with a click of one button inside of Casca, they can share this deal with the authorization of the borrower with any other bank who might be able to do the deal, any other bank that is on Casca, and create a win-win-win situation where a small business owner wins because they get the funding they need, even from another community bank. The referring bank wins because they might get a referral fee, they might get some goodwill with the borrower because they actually served their customer. And the acquiring bank wins because they get to do a deal they otherwise might not have seen. I think that creates a true win for the small businesses in America, where you are no longer forced to choose between quick predatory funding or slow, good funding, where you just get the best and you get it fast.
Yeah, no, I love the ambition. I think there's it's a space that's ripe for some new energy, some new technology. Easy to see why you were able to capture the imagination of our audience. And again, for anybody who's listening, I would encourage you to check out the demo video. It is available at finovate.com/videos. So I've been chatting with Lukas Haffer, CEO of Cascading AI. Lukas, thank you so much for taking the time, and congratulations again on that Best of Show win.
Thanks.
The Finovate podcast is produced by Informa Connect in association with Provoke.fm Media. Check out Finovate.com for information on Finovate's upcoming shows and to learn how you can get involved. The discount code Finovate Podcast will save you 20% on tickets to all of our events. And you can email us at info@finovate.com for information on sponsoring, speaking, or demoing. Thanks for listening.